Welcome to the Epic Summary Podcast.
Great to be here.
Today, we're diving deep into a book that honestly offers a really refreshing and relatable perspective on finding a little more happiness in our daily lives. It's Dan Harris's 10% Happier.
Yeah, and the title itself is kind of key, isn't it? This isn't about some, radical overnight transformation. No becoming a blissed-out guru.
Exactly. It's much more down to earth, often funny, actually, and it's scientifically grounded. It explores how mindfulness and meditation can help, well, even the biggest skeptics among us.
Right. People like Harris himself initially. It's about dialing down the stress, that constant background hum, and just nudging up contentment, even just a bit.
So our mission in this deep dive is really to unpack the core ideas, those sort of impactful moments from Harris's own journey.
Exactly. Give you a real taste of what the book's about and hopefully, spark some curiosity to maybe check it out for yourself.
Okay, so let's jump right in. Dan Harris. His backstory is pretty central to this, isn't it? High-pressure career, ABC News correspondent.
Oh, absolutely. A very high-profile job, reporting on major global events seen by millions, but behind the cameras, things weren't quite so smooth.
Right. He talks about this pivotal moment, which must have been terrifying. A live on-air panic attack.
Yeah, about a dozen years ago, live on Good Morning America, I think, a hugely public and vulnerable moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that really became the wake-up call.
It forced him to confront the immense pressure he was under, didn't it?
It really did. It sent him on this quest, you could say, to understand stress, anxiety, and what he could actually do about it. And the interesting part is, like you said, he wasn't naturally drawn to self-help or meditation. He was a real skeptic.
And I think that skepticism is actually what makes the book work so well for so many people. It's relatable. He wasn't searching for some, mystical experience.
Not at all. He wanted practical, evidence-based tools, something that could help him manage his anxiety, which was very real. And that search led him to this fundamental insight about the ego.
Ah, yes, the ego. The book really digs into this, how the ego's nature is kind of relentlessly unsatisfied.
That's a good way to put it. It constantly measures our worth by comparing us to others, doesn't it? Their money, their looks, their status, their job title.
It's a game you can't win because there's always someone who seems to have more.
Exactly. So you're caught in this cycle of wanting, achieving briefly, and then wanting the next thing. Dissatisfaction is almost built in.
It's like that baseline for happiness just keeps resetting higher and higher after every little achievement. You get the promotion, great. Feels good for, a week?
If that. And then you're already thinking about the next rung on the ladder.
Yeah.
The ego thrives on that restlessness, that striving.
And it's not just about the future, right? The book talks about how the ego also loves to dwell on past muck-ups or worry endlessly about what might go wrong.
Precisely. It pulls you out of the present moment, which is the only place we actually live. All that internal chatter, the comparisons, the worries, it's a huge source of stress.
Okay, but here's a question that probably comes up for a lot of ambitious people listening. If you start taming the ego, dialing down that internal drive, don't you risk losing your edge, your motivation?
That's a really common concern, and Harris addresses it head on. He shares this great little anecdote about an Indian meditation teacher, Munindra.
Oh, yeah.
So one of Munindra's students saw him haggling pretty firmly over the price of peanuts in a market. And the student was like, how does this fit with being simple and detached?
Good question.
And Munindra's reply was just brilliant. He said, I said be simple, not a simpleton.
That's fantastic. It completely busts that myth, doesn't it? That mindfulness makes you passive or, a doormat.
Totally. It's not about becoming indifferent or losing your preferences or ambitions. It's not about letting people walk all over you.
So what is it about, then, in this context?
The book really emphasizes that mindfulness, especially through meditation, helps you detach from the unnecessary stuff, the pointless stress, the aggressive impulses, the sort of ego-driven reactions that often cloud our judgment.
So by being more present, less caught up in that ego noise,
you can actually approach things with more clarity, better focus. Harris even found his creativity increased.
Right, he talks about that meditation retreat experience, where suddenly he was taking tons of notes, ideas were just flowing.
Exactly. Quieting the internal static can actually free up mental bandwidth, allowing for clearer thinking and, more creativity. It's counterintuitive to some, but it makes sense.
It does. And this ties into another really key idea in the book, this concept of a fourth habitual response.
Yeah, this is fascinating. So traditional Buddhist psychology talks about three main ways we habitually react to things. We either want it, we reject it, or we kind of zone out.
Okay, I can see that. You smell cookies baking, you want them. Your neighbor starts drilling at 7 a.m., you reject that noise. You're watching the safety briefing on a plane.
You zone out, exactly. Those
Yeah.
are the defaults for most of us.
So what's the fourth response that meditation supposedly helps us develop?
The fourth response is the ability to simply observe whatever's happening, internally or externally, without immediately judging it or reacting to it.
Okay. How does that work in practice?
Well, the book explains it often starts with physical sensations, like you feel an itch during meditation. Instead of instantly scratching, you just notice it. Observe the sensation of itching. What does it actually feel like?
Just watching it without doing anything?
Right. You don't have to scratch. You don't have to hate the itch. You just observe it. And often you find it changes or fades on its own.
I can see how that builds a certain kind of awareness, but how does that leap from a physical itch to, say, feeling angry or anxious?
It's the same principle, just applied to more complex stuff.
Yeah.
With practice, you start noticing your thoughts and emotions arise in the same way. You see the anger bubble up or the wave of anxiety start.
Instead of just being angry, you notice, there's anger.
Exactly. You become aware of it as a phenomenon passing through rather than getting totally swept away by it.
Yeah.
You acknowledge it. Okay, anger is here, without necessarily acting on it immediately or judging yourself for feeling it.
So it creates that little gap, a pause between the feeling or thought and your reaction.
That's the crucial part, that pause. It gives you a choice point.
Hmm.
Instead of the knee-jerk reaction snapping back when angry, spiraling when anxious, you have a moment to decide how you want to respond.
Which could lead to, well, better choices, more thoughtful actions, maybe more compassion.
Definitely. Towards yourself and others. It's about breaking those ingrained, often unhelpful, automatic pilot reactions.
Now let's talk about the title itself, 10% Happier. It's quite specific, quite modest, really.
It is, and that was very deliberate on Harris's part. It's not promising nirvana or constant euphoria. That's just not realistic for most people.
Right. It sets a manageable, believable goal, a tangible improvement.
Yeah. Exactly. A realistic bump in well-being. And this really speaks to the book's whole approach. It's very non-fluffy, very science-based. Harris, with his journalism background, really digs into the research.
He talks to neuroscientists, psychologists.
Yeah, he looks for the evidence. What does science actually say about how meditation affects the brain and our stress levels? This makes it super accessible, especially for skeptics.
It avoids that kind of vague, new agey language that can put people off.
Totally. It focuses much more on the benefits, the why bother, rather than getting bogged down in overly complex techniques, which can be intimidating if you're new to it all.
And speaking of techniques, how does he actually describe the meditation practice itself? Is it complicated?
Not at all. The core practice he focuses on is actually remarkably simple. Basically, you sit comfortably, close your eyes or lower your gaze,
Okay.
and you gently focus your attention on the physical sensation of your breath. Just noticing the air coming in, going out.
And what happens when your mind wanders? Because, it will.
Oh, it absolutely will. That's guaranteed. And the instruction is simply this. When you notice your mind has wandered off thinking about emails, dinner, or whatever you wind, just gently and kindly, without beating yourself up, redirect your attention back to the breath.
So the wandering isn't failure, it's part of the process.
It is a process, in a way. Every time you notice you've wandered and bring your attention back, that's like a little mental push-up for your focus and awareness muscles. The technique is simple. The profound part comes from the consistency, the accumulated effect over time, as Harris really illustrates through his own experiences.
It sounds very doable. So for people listening now, maybe feeling intrigued by this, who do you think really gets the most out of reading 10% Happier?
Well, I think it's incredibly valuable for anyone who struggles with, say, anger or worry or just that persistent background hum of anxiety.
People maybe feeling stressed out by their jobs.
Absolutely. Anyone in a high-pressure career, like Harris himself was, will likely find a lot to relate to. But honestly, perhaps the biggest group are those who've always been a bit skeptical about meditation.
The eye rollers.
Yeah, the eye rollers. Or people who maybe tried it once, thought, this isn't for me, and dismissed it. Because Harris was that person. His journey from hardcore skeptic to, well, someone who finds real value in the practice makes it incredibly persuasive and relatable.
It sounds like a really solid practical starting point then. We've covered some key ground, the ego trap, that idea of the fourth response, the science focus.
And the basic simplicity of the practice itself.
Right. Of course, there's so much more in the book. His interviews, his personal stories are really engaging. If this deep dive has piqued your interest at all, we definitely recommend grabbing the book.
Yeah, see the journey for yourself.
We've put a link to purchase it right there in the episode description for you.
We really hope this discussion about 10% happier has given you some valuable things to think about. The potential of mindfulness to bring just a little more calm, a bit more clarity into everyday life.
It really is a practical, no-nonsense guide for navigating the stresses of just living today.
It cuts through a lot of the hype, which is refreshing.
Thank you for joining us for this summary on the Epic Summary podcast. Maybe it leaves you thinking about, how often that restless ego is driving your day and what even a tiny bit more space between thought and reaction might actually feel like.
Yeah, a really worthwhile question to ponder. And with that, thank you for listening to the Epic Summary podcast.